morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Ghost and Ghouls. My name is Fetch Albuckle, and welcome to the spookiest radio show around, bringing you the creepiest tales to keep you up at night. If you enjoy my show, give the bell a click to be notified when I go on air. Every Sunday, we are live. Now for this evening, we have a very special guest joining us for tonight's show. Without further ado, let's welcome our friend Scream With Me Stories.
Hello, Fetch. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here this evening.
It's an honor having you here, friend. Now before we get into the show, please do tell us about yourself and what you do.
I focus on true horror stories ranging from Let's Not Meet, creepy encounters, stalker stories, and more. I post twice a week, once on Thursdays and once on Sundays at 9 p.m. EST.
That's absolutely wonderful. Now, my new neighbor might be a little loud today, so my apologies in advance. We have never had a Wendigo move in.
What was that?
I have no idea what you're talking about, but... well, I think we both know who that is. I will be one moment, I'm sorry.
No worries. Take your time.
Okay, spell be gone.
Hello, human. How are you this evening?
I'm fine, thank you. You also spit in my face, but you know what? I'll allow it. What can I help you with?
Do you have any spare sugar? I need it for cooking purposes.
You know what? I actually do. I'll be right back.
Who was that?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Now, folks, it's time to dive into tonight's stories. So, as always, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's sink into the tales that await you. Take it away, Scream With Me Stories.
A group of friends and I decided to play a game of capture the flag at a nearby park that was close to a forest. We had about 15 people on each team, so it was a pretty large game, and we chose a forest that was fairly safe so no one would get severely hurt. There was a good amount of trees and rocks to hide behind, but there were no fallen over logs or rocky terrain that we had to run through. It was far enough away from any homes, so no one would call the cops on a bunch of teenagers running near their property at night. So we started to play the game, and the sun slowly went down. My closest friend named Zach had brought a bunch of flashlights for everyone so we could play in the dark. Everyone was given one, and there was a rule made that you had to have the light on the entire time so you couldn't hide in the dark. Now that everyone had their supplies, we got back to playing the game. Zach and I were on the same team, and about 2 minutes into the game, he comes up to me and taps me on the shoulder and says with a chuckle, "Hey Damien, I got a secret weapon. You gotta check this out." "What do you got?" I asked somewhat eagerly. He gestured me to follow him, and he led me to his car. He then opened the door and pulled out a loudspeaker and a fog machine. "What, are you going to play theme music for us and have a dramatic foggy background?" I jokingly said as I examined the battery-operated fog machine. "Nah, I'm going to scare the bejesus out of the other team. In history class last semester, I heard about a psychological warfare the U.S. Army used against North Vietnam in the Vietnam War. It was a mental scare tactic to drive soldiers hiding in trees and in tunnels insane by the cries and moaning of their supposed dead until they finally came out. The Army put together Buddhist funeral music, moaning and static hissing, and even other personal-related things involving Vietnam culture to scare them. It was so effective that the U.S. Army made it a rule that it couldn't be played anywhere near our South Vietnam allies. Zach said this as he hooked up the Bluetooth from his phone to the speaker. He continued saying, "I chose one of them called Wandering Souls. It's the 10th ghost tape that they made." I looked at him wondering if he was crazy and said with a raised eyebrow, "We ain't in war, Zach. It's just a game of capture the flag. Plus, won't that affect our own teammates as well?" "One step ahead of you, Damien. I bought a bunch of earplugs right before coming here," he said as he pulled out a plastic container filled with bright orange earplugs. "Now, let's hurry up and set this up and help out our team. Also, can can you carry the fog machine? He asked as he grabbed the large speaker. Yeah, I got it, but do you really think that this is necessary? I asked as I followed him to where he was going to set up the speaker. Oh, you'll see. If the other team even dares to come to our territory, they'll be sorry, Zach said with a smirk. We set up the speaker and the fog machine in separate hidden areas. Zach quickly went around to all of our teammates that he could find and gave them earplugs after he gave me some. While he did this, I tagged one of the opposing team players and tried to steal their flag, but I sadly got tagged about a foot from it and had to go to jail. I texted Zach to see if he could come get me out, and he replied with, "It's showtime," and nothing else. Not even 5 seconds later, I could hear those awful, dreaded sounds coming through the forest. There were 2 girls guarding the jail, and they asked in a creeped out way, "What is that? Whoever's playing that better knock it off right now." That's when the fog slowly started to come over us. I knew this was fake, but I was still scared, and my heart rate spiked up. I decided to put the earplugs Zach gave me in, and one of the girls saw me doing this and said accusingly, "You must be a part of this. You have earplugs." She then came over with her friend and told me to tell whoever turned the sound on to turn it off. So I sent a text to Zach, but he didn't respond. And when the contorted sounds didn't stop, one of the girls took the earplugs from me and started to put them in her ear. And that's when her friend said, "What makes you think that you get to have them?" And this led to an argument. It was around this time that Zach quietly ran up to me, hidden by the fog, and freed me from jail. The 2 girls didn't notice that I had left because the sound was the only thing that they could think about. "Where are your earplugs?" Zach asked as we ran through the smoky fog. "One of the people guarding the jail took them from me." "Well, I just gave my last pair to Charlie. You're going to have to tough it out. Sorry, man," he said as we got back to where our flag was standing. It was at this time that someone freaked out and was starting to scream. I looked at Zach and he had a smile on his face. I, however, was freaked out and ran to where the sound was coming from, and we all mutually agreed to pause the game so we could see what was wrong. When we got there, a kid that I didn't know too well, named Jack, was on the ground in the fetal position. He was covered in dirt. When I looked more closely, it looked like something had dragged him across the ground because the pine needles had all been gathered up by his body. It was at this time that Zach showed up, and when he got there, everyone was demanding for whoever was playing the sound to turn it off. Zach looked at Jack laying on the ground and saw the drag marks. He was sort of freaked out by now, and so he quieted everyone down and said that he would turn off the sounds. Some people thought this was funny, while the majority got mad for him playing it. Zach got on his phone and it asked if he wanted to disconnect from the speaker, and he clicked yes, and the phone showed that he had disconnected, but the sound continued to play. Zach tried everything that he could do, but nothing worked. One girl named Amy came up and asked if she could try. Zach let her, but she was unable to stop the sounds either. "I guess I'm gonna manually have to try and turn it off," Zach said as he walked towards where he hid it. Some people decided that they were just going to head home because they were too freaked out to play. I went with Zach, and as soon as we got to where he hid the speaker, it was gone. Zach was so confused where it had gone because he could still hear it clear as day. When the others showed up behind us, Zach turned around to them and said, "Okay, someone here must have stolen my speaker, connected it to their phone, and now is playing the same exact song because there's no reason that the song should still be playing." Many people thought that Zach was still trying to trick them and didn't believe them. Amy stepped up and said boldly, "We need to find his speaker fast and turn off those awful sounds. Everyone span out and go look for it." Everyone agreed and we left in groups. Zach and I went to turn the fog machine off and put it away. He was glad that no one messed with it, and he said as we packed it up, "Man, whoever is messing with my speaker is going to get it really bad. They won't see it coming, that's for sure." Yeah, And how are they able to connect their phones and not mess up the sequence of the eerie sounds? I asked as we walked to Zach's car. The fog, however, got us all turned around, and the only thing that we could see were the flashlights from the other kids. We decided to go meet up with them. When we got there, they were all huddled around the speaker, but it was smashed to bits. As soon as Zach saw his speaker, he started yelling and was wondering who the jerk was that smashed it. It was at this time he noticed that the dreadful song was still playing in the background. What the hell is going on? Zach mumbled as he looked around at the other kids. Amy then said angrily, "I thought you turned the fog machine off. There's still fog everywhere." I then butted in and said, "We did. Look, I have it right here in my hand." After seeing that I had it and how dense the fog still was, everyone was starting to become even more freaked out. They all started yelling at Zach, telling him that this was his fault that all of this was happening. The people who found it then informed all of us that the speaker was broken when they got there. Nothing was making sense to anyone in the group, and my heart rate was going through the roof, having to listen to all those moaning and eerie sounds coming from everywhere but nowhere all at once. "Where's Jack? Is he handling this okay?" Amy said as she looked around for him. Someone in the group responded, "He and his older brother left earlier when we decided to search for the speaker." That ain't good. I mumbled to myself, thinking that it was quiet enough so no one would hear it. "Why do you say that?" Amy asked me intensely. I let out a sigh and said, "Well, the fog was so damn thick that Zach and I got all turned around. We couldn't find Zach's car to put the fog machine away. Also, where everyone parked their car is close enough that we should have heard an engine start up," I explained as I set the fog machine on the ground. After saying this, I gazed around and everyone was freaked out of their mind. Some of the girls and guys started to cry out of fear. Someone in the group screamed and we all turned around to see what was wrong. Looking off in the distance, where we saw a black shadow figure that had a pale white face that moved supernaturally in our direction. The girl's screams only became louder as the thing came up and grabbed her by the legs and started dragging her off. We were all stunned and I jumped and tried to grab her hands, but as soon as I got close enough to her, she was pulled into an underground hole that was sealed up behind her. The last thing that I saw was her petrified face and outstretched hand until the dirt covered her up. I didn't know what to think and my mind was going crazy. It was like I was in a nightmare that I could not wake up from. Now everyone in the group was freaking out and the music stirred around in our heads, driving us insane. I could not imagine what the Vietnam soldiers went through while listening to this in the jungle. "Damien, look behind you," Zach said, quivering down to his spine. I looked, and there before me were more shadow figures, and their silhouettes looked like they were soldiers. I instinctively ran away from them, as did everyone else, and we tried to run where we thought we parked our cars, and every step seemed like we were stepping in mud on a jungle floor, and our shoes were soaking wet. I saw Zach's car ahead of me, and I yelled to everyone to follow me, and they did as one stampede. The sounds kept on growing louder and ever so intense. The whole forest scenery around us changed to a jungle with vines hanging down and large roots popping out of the ground. I didn't stop until I made it to the car and barely saw the road to leave on through the fog. The whole time, screams could be heard as well as choppers and gunshots. It was like we were caught in a war. Zach finally reached the car and we both hopped in swiftly and drove out of there. As we were speeding on the road, we saw a silhouette of a man coming out of the fog, and he was standing right in the middle of the road. Zach swerved and tried to miss him, and as he did, I looked at the man, and he had a bullet hole in his head, but he somehow was still alive. Zach tried to stay on the road, but he couldn't control the vehicle anymore, and we slammed headfirst into a tree and both blacked out. It was a few days later when I woke up in the hospital and my mind was spinning. As I did, a nurse walked in and I quickly asked, "What happened? Where's Zach?" Oh, don't worry. Your friend Zach is fine. He woke up yesterday, and if you can't remember, you got into a car accident last Monday. It was probably because of the giant fog cloud that covered the entire town. You were unable to see the road, and that's probably why you crashed. The nurse said, as she was writing something on a clipboard. She then continued, I'm going to get your parents and inform the doctor that you woke up. I'll be right back. She then walked into a busy hallway. I was so confused about what happened that night and wondered if it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Then I saw a newspaper that sat on a counter close to my bed. I picked the paper up and the main headline read, 12 teenagers gone missing during mysterious fog Monday night. I was shocked and I looked at the picture and saw Jack's face. I saw his older brother and the girl I tried to save. They were all shown among others. I then heard my phone buzz and it was a text from Zach all in caps which read, I can't stop hearing those eerie sounds and no one around me can hear them. Can you hear them? My heart ran cold when the music began to play.
Well, that wraps up today's interesting show. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Also, special thanks to SS for joining me this evening. If you guys want to give his channel a visit, I highly suggest you do. Here's a variety of content that will captivate you at first sight. I'll link his info in the description below. But that's all for now. Thank you for tuning in and tune back in next Sunday. My name is Fetcher Buckle.
My name is Scream With Me Stories.
Signing off.
Where's my sugar, Fetch?
Oh, son of a bitch!